Well, the world has certainly become a more dangerous place. I was Defence Secretary at the time of the Cold War and at the time of the ending of the Cold War. And while we were all delighted to see that terrible period end, there's no question that in many ways the world was much safer then, when there were two superpowers with a real grip on their own situations and in very powerful positions. Now we look at the world and it's become much more fragmented. There are many more people trying to get access to nuclear weapons. And even as I speak now, the world is changing very fast with the situation in the Middle East and with Iran and Syria and other countries in very uncertain situations at the moment. And India and Pakistan, obviously, other worries exist. And it's against that background also that what has certainly changed is the rise of terrorism of a kind that the world hasn't experienced before. I had my experiences as Secretary of State for Northern Ireland in dealing with terrorist problems at that time. But even their very worst, the IRA and some of the loyalist gangs were a bit careful about what actions they took. They weren't into mass casualties, regardless of the impact on public opinion. And now we have a world in which people are prepared to kill for the sake of killing. And that means that the existence of nuclear weapons, certainly if they're in insecure hands, makes the world a very dangerous place. And so that's why I think a certain attitude, really a very casual attitude, that we've always had nuclear weapons, and people had rather felt they could just stay as they were. I think people now realise that this is something that we really want to ensure the minimum number of nuclear weapons in the world, leading possibly and hopefully at some distant time, I'm afraid at the moment it looks distant, perhaps their abolition. But at this moment, certainly there needs to be a significant reduction in the amount of nuclear weapons in the world, and I strongly support that. Progressive, multilateral nuclear disarmament is what the world now needs. How far it goes and how far down the line, that's impossible to predict at this moment. And there will certainly be people who will be fearful of totally abandoning their nuclear defences, and one can see that happening. But they do look increasingly irrelevant in the new challenges that we face. And the recent conversations between President Obama, President Medvedev, clearly there are voices on both sides recognising that there simply isn't the case to have these huge arsenals. And that's not just those countries, because we can play our part. And we can certainly limit the amount of nuclear weapons that we have. We don't want to blow up countries 12 to 10 times over, with the threat that it poses to the planet as well. And so the level at which you can still maintain, for those who are determined to maintain some form of deterrence, certainly I believe can be maintained at a significantly lower level. That's a start, and as people grow in confidence, then you can see that being carried further. But the difficulty about nuclear weapons is to ensure their secure handling. And I recall very well, at the end of the Cold War, and we then had the collapse of the Soviet Union. And I remember a meeting in number 10 with President Yeltsin, who was coming on a visit with a high-level delegation, including my opposite number, who was effectively the Soviet Minister of Defense. But as the Soviet Union was crumbling, and as then it became Russia, suddenly, of course, the trouble was that a number of the Soviet nuclear weapons were in countries that were no longer under Russian control. And one of those was actually Kazakhstan, which had a number of nuclear weapons based there, without any means of transporting them back to the Soviet Union, or Russia rather, from the old Soviet Union area. And we actually organised and offered to help with containers, sealed, secure containers that could be used for transporting these nuclear weapons back, so they could be back under secure Russian control. And that was just one illustration of what I mean. And that was organised under government-to-government organisations. Now the worry of, there have been plenty of sensational films made of terrorists trying to get hold of nuclear weapons. It is a real risk, and that's why the more we can limit them, the more important it is. The challenge we face, which I think has been partially met already, is to waken people up. It's an issue that people have actually moved on from and left and forgotten all about. And actually it's an issue that does need addressing seriously now, because obviously the world is at risk. If nuclear weapons fell into the wrong hands, we would be faced with a really, really grave situation. And so that's the first problem, is to get interest in this. Now, there is still people who feel somehow that we need to have a huge nuclear arsenal and we've got to be able to play sort of almost ping-pong with nuclear weapons. And that is unreal. Yes, at the moment, no question that we will remain a nuclear weapon state, but we can do it with considerably limiting our nuclear arsenal, and I think that can be done. Certainly, I think us playing our part, giving the example as well, the Russians and the United States certainly have, I think, an arsenal way beyond anything. They can take them down considerably without putting themselves at risk or appearing that they no longer have a very powerful and effective deterrent. And then moving on from that, then I see the situation of then trying to see how we can stop proliferation into a number of other countries that may seek to develop these weapons as well. And of course, to make it possible for the peaceful development of nuclear energy without it being used as an excuse to get into nuclear weapons as well. And what I'm particularly pleased about is the fact that we've got together this top-level group, which does comprise, right across parties and different governments, more or less every foreign secretary, defence secretary, significant number of chiefs of defence staff, all who've had, in their time, some serious involvement in these issues, but now working together on all-party basis, which is very important from a government point of view, because if a government's trying to make initiatives in this area, it doesn't want to feel it's going to be stabbed in the back by somebody trying to take party political advantage of this. And it's very noticeable the impact that that's had internationally. And certainly we've had meetings now together with similar leaders, former secretaries of defence or foreign affairs from a number of European countries, from the United States as well, and with Russian representation as well. That's your slogan that talk works is absolutely right. And getting groups together like this, working together, I see this only accelerating the opportunities here as confidence grows, trust between us grows, to see developments which will be of benefit to all our countries.